Hey guys, just wanted to make another video on kind of how I've evolved and then devolved a particular build. I guess you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. But basically I used to have this SL72 Dex build. It was like fun in premise, but it kind of just did all the exact same things that my other builds do at the exact same levels. So I bumped it up to a hybrid luck and dex build for SL90 plus 10. And boy, oh man, do luck builds just kind of suck. I mean, this build is totally unstoppable. It just absolutely melts all opponents. Imagine taking all of the benefits of a strength build or a dex build, and then your opponent bleeds to death every 6 seconds. Just constant blood flying everywhere. You're basically just playing a version of Dark Souls that kind of wants to be Bloodborne, but is kind of held back by being another Dark Souls game, so you don't have any of the cool stuff that Bloodborne had. Anyways, this build is so overpowered that you bleed someone out once, and they just fucking DC on you. Neat. Anyways, no, actually this build isn't very good. And there's a couple reasons for that. For one, I wanted to use the offhand Karthus Curve Sword as like kind of this nod to this old meta that no longer exists. But also just because it's a fun curve sword and it does a lot of damage and it's pretty big. It's like a straight sword in your offhand. But this makes it so that if people don't want to fight you, like you killed their phantoms and they're just running away, it makes it very hard to chase them down properly. So you kind of need people to be aggressive and want to fight you with this build, which is fairly irritating. Also, in order to get consistent bleedouts, you kind of need to apply Karthus Rouge, which is not a great thing for invasions, because having to stop any sort of momentum you might have going and make space for yourself so you can apply a tool that may or may not work sometimes, because bleed can get rolled very often. It just kind of breaks up the flow of invasions that I like a lot. It doesn't let you be as aggressive as I personally want to be. So yeah, bleed build wasn't working out too well, and I kind of wanted to do something different. So it kind of just sat on the shelf for a while because I'm like, oh, it's such an original build, you don't want to keep it, oh no. And I just didn't do any invasions with it for like 5 months, until I finally just deleted it and created a new character. With every new build that I make, I want to focus on something a little different that they do that's special about them. Something that whenever I log into the game and select this character to play, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to use like this certain playstyle. And what I wanted to focus on here with Godric is hard swaps, menu swaps and stuff like that. But I also wanted to do something a little bit more creative than just like, gun to your swap, and then like I press L2 and then R2, and then my opponent just immediately dies. Dex weapons have a ton of really cool weapon arts to them. Stuff like the Astora charge, which is pretty basic, but then you have shield splitter on katanas like Dark Drift. You have the Onikiri Onus Layer, like jumping double slash weave move, which is pretty fun. And then you also have stuff like the Prying Edge Follower Saber weapon art. So these are all swaps that I wanted to practice. I'm still pretty bad at them. And I'm kind of only doing them in pretty safe scenarios, but I want to get to the point where I can get more creative and really use them as mix-ups. Ideally, I'd love to be able to use swaps like situationally, so like using Prying Edge to open up turtles, or like the Astora's charge to take out phantoms who have just been backstabbed or something like that. Just stuff that would make sense to do situationally that can throw my opponents off, but also that would be comfortable enough doing when fighting multiple opponents or something like that. I don't know, it's just fun, and I don't want to do stuff that's like super overpowered. I just want to do stuff that looks flashy and cool, while at the same time being useful. Whereas I know a lot of other players like to use backstabs and parries to be flashy. I just really don't like them all that much for some reason. I'm fine with going for backstabs against like, you know, big heavy weapons, because that's like literally punishing them for being too cumbersome with their weapons, I guess. But I think this is like much more in tune with being like stylized in my play, rather than going for criticals all the time. But hey, if you like that sort of thing, by all means, go for it. That's just my personal preference on it. I also have a bunch of other tools on this build that I don't really use on. That's not true. I use them on plenty of other builds, but this specifically is the Painting Guardian Curved Sword that is bleed infused, and I use this to deal with guys who have upgraded their Black Knight shields and Great Shields. Guys who are basically just never going to get guard broken. So for those circumstances, I have this little sword, which bleed gets through shields pretty effectively, and has a really nice weapon art for heal punishes. I also put a straight sword on this build because it's Dark Souls 3, and that is what you do with builds, you put straight swords on them. But it's just so nice to be able to dodge between attacks, just like that. And paired with the S-Stock, just has so much mix-up and combo potential, which is so much fun, even if it's really basic. Another incredibly basic weapon I'm using is the Claymore. It's just because I wanted to get pokes on R2s again. I pretty much never use R2s on other greatswords, and even though the Flamberge out-damages the Claymore by kind of a lot on a sharp build, I still just really wanted the pokes. They can sometimes be a good roll catch, and they do a good amount of stamina damage and poise damage, and they can be just a lot of fun to change up and throw something in there. I've also been incorporating R2s a little bit more when I'm using like the narco setup, just because when I start to do my usual thing where I kind of put people into this like roll catching stagger combo, I start to throw in R2s in there as well, which do good damage and have also really good range on, so they can just be fun. It's not a great, it's actually a really terrible move from neutral to just charge a one-handed R2, but while you're putting players in like roll catch hell basically with the narco setup, throwing in an R2 in there is a good mix-up, does good damage, has a decent amount of stun on it too. But I guess the real reason I made this video in the first place was because of how much fun I was having invading with the lucerne. If you haven't given this some sort of try, I would really highly recommend it. Lucerne is a halberd that does poking damage, so thrust damage. The halberds in general have halfway decent hyper armor, enough to get you through straight swords and like axes, and a good amount of one-handed greatswords, but won't get you through two-handed greatswords, ultra greatswords, anything like that. What makes the lucerne really shine for me is like kind of two things. One, its running attack is really good. It does good damage, can interrupt a lot of attacks, and it has like a little shockwave in front of it as well. But the weapon art is so damn good. It is a 3-hit combo that has a good amount of poise to it. I think it can poise through everything up to two-handed ultra greatswords. But the weapon art comes out fast, and the hyper armor starts up really fast as well. And you kind of have to be facing your opponent head on for it to land all 3 hits. But it's really, really great for a mix-up if your opponent, likes to try to parry you, which parrying halberds is already hard enough. It's also an excellent heal punish. It does like the amount of damage you want a heal punish to do. And it's also really good for people who want to swing out of hit stun, as long as they don't have something as heavy as like a two-handed greatsword. Two-handed ultra greatsword. And that kind of leads me into my next thing, is that it like shines really well, I feel, against two-handed greatswords, especially because of its weapon art, because of that mix-up potential it has. A lot of two-handed greatswords to me feel really limited in that they kind of have one good attack, which is their R1, and maybe you have an R2 that pokes. But the running attacks are universally bad on greatswords, so it just kind of becomes kind of limiting. You kind of have to rely so much on spacing your R1s out, or making trades, which is why a lot of people I think add the S-Stock or another offhand weapon, because that just makes it so much easier to engage from neutral with a greatsword in general. This, you don't have to worry about that, because the running attacks are awesome, and the R1s are also awesome, and then the weapon art is fucking fantastic. The only thing that is not great about this weapon, there's a couple things, but the main moveset that's not great about this weapon is two-handed R2s, which are that spinny attack that was really, really good in Bloodborne, but in this game kind of just gets you backstabbed. One-handed R2s are halfway decent, but I'm never really using this weapon one-handed anyways. The other thing the lucerne doesn't do very well is fight multiple people at once. I find it to be really good when you kind of have to run an invasion on a timer, so to speak, where it's like, alright, there's summoning phantoms, I gotta kill this guy, or you know, you're co-invading and you have to keep this guy busy or kill the phantom you have isolated so that your co-invader has a chance. Those kind of situations is really good, but if you're just fighting a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-1, this can't target multiple people at once. And the R1 combo is so slow that if you are fighting like a party with a caster in it, there's a good chance that while you're getting your guaranteed 2-hit combo, that someone's just gonna annihilate you with a CVV or Crystal Soul Spear or whatever. Same goes for, you know, Ultra Great Swords and Great Hammers. A lot of fighting 2 people at once is being quick on your feet, and you know, not committing too hard to a series of attacks, and you kind of have to commit pretty hard to a series of attacks with the lucerne. That's not to say that you can't bring the lucerne into an invasion against multiple players, just that you have to be careful and strategic about isolating them. I do it here in this invasion, but that's largely because the party like willfully separates themselves from each other, and I'm able just to go and pick them all off one by one. And lucerne is very, very good at that. I stop a lot of heal attempts with the running attack. I do a good amount of damage with the running attack, and I have the weapon art in my back pocket in case I need to have a lot of poise all of a sudden. And I do that here. I really didn't expect to get through a lot of this perseverance, but it works out pretty well. I only take a few hits from it. It's actually really effective against weapons like the Cestus, just because they rely on getting in close with you. But because I have so much range on the R1s, if someone pops perseverance while I hit them, I can easily back out. It's also good not to queue up 2 R1s every time you use this weapon. You are guaranteed a 2-hit combo, but it's a good strategy to make sure that first R1 confirms before you queue up the second one. Let's talk a little bit about the synergy this weapon has with the Leo Ring. It does a lot of damage, but only when it works. And it doesn't work all that often, and in my opinion, it isn't totally worth a ring slot. But that's because I fill up my ring slots with stupid shit like the Untrue Dark Ring, because I like looking cool when I invade. But if you have like an extra ring slot where you might put a Hornet Ring, then this is a good little tool you can also use for extra burst damage here and there. Well, I guess the last thing I really wanted to talk about was using Wex Dust. I made this character a little bit strange because I was trying to target like a weird in-between between like 72 plus 8 and like 60 plus 6. And I know a lot of people do 60 plus 8. I wanted to get a little bit higher so I get more of an in-between, whatever. Because of that, I started using Wex Dust because then I could just invade anyone at that range. I didn't have to go around and chase the embers all over the place, which is just a lot of loading screens. What I didn't know is that Wex Dust can also land you as a Spear of the Church, which at 63 plus 8 is just all twinks. And they're always surprised to encounter like another player, and so it's kind of just like, oh shit, I have to fight a real person, when they're definitely expecting just to get half-light. And there's something incredibly cathartic about killing a twink who really had no intention of participating in PvP at the time. So I don't get spear invasions that often with Wex Dust, but when it does happen, it's a lot of fun. The last reason I use Wex Dust a lot is because I feel like it fits a lot better with this character, who I just made to be like a on-the-run like assassin. Because that's kind of something I liked about Creighton from Dark Souls 2, was that he was supposed to be this like murderer from Mira, who escaped prison and is like now on the prowl. And I kind of like that idea for this character, which is why I'm kind of using his mask. And I think something like Wex Dust that allows you to roam all over the entire map to find new hosts to kill is pretty fitting with this character. So it's both functional and lore appropriate. I really wish I wasn't this big of a Dark Souls nerd, but that's not changing anytime soon. Man, how about that Demon Souls announcement? Man, that really just got me excited and then tore my fucking heart out when they retracted all of their PC announcements. So I guess I'll still be playing this game for a little while longer. But anyways, I'm gonna let the outro of this video just be this fun fight I had with dedicated Abyss Watchers cosplay. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.